All right. Got that fixed. Thank you so much. That's why I always need a sound check. We always need a sound check and a video check because of that. Okay, got a good picture. And do we have audio now? That's better. Okay, I think that means that we have sound. All right, so welcome to the stream, and thank you everybody for showing up on a Saturday. And I hope you're drinking out of one of these cups. That's my shameless plug. And thank you for that. Thank you on the sound. I appreciate that. Sound is good, very good, and picture is good, very good. All right, Jerry's Fish Room in the house. Be sure to visit Jerry's Fish Room on YouTube. We're trying to grow that channel. He's got a 180-gallon custom tank from our friends over at Glass Cages in Dixon, Tennessee. Beautiful tank. Go check it out. So JD said I can't hear you. Maybe there's a lag on the chat. But some of you are saying that the sound is coming through, so I'm going to go with that. And my my soundboard here tells me that the mic is working, so hopefully that is the case. So let's get into it. I have some fun stuff to talk about. I also have an announcement, and let me just go ahead and just show it here. There we go. There's going to be a Christmas giveaway, and this is going to be on the live stream on the 17th, right before Christmas. Of course, there'll be no live stream. I think there'll be no live stream the following weekend, and maybe a Cichlids and Suds before New Year's. And but we'll play it by ear. We'll see how that goes. You folks tell me if you want a live stream through the holidays, but for the most part, I think I'll just let everybody spend their Saturdays with their families. Thank you, Anthony. Sound is good. I appreciate that. So we're going to be. I'm rounding up some vendors. And I've got some great gift certificates from Corey at the co-op. I've got a big gift certificate, a big one from KG Tropicals. So if you've been looking at what does he carry over there? You got Shisei pumps, you've got beautiful betta fish, you've got a lot of things over at KG Tropicals. So he's throwing about $100 in a gift certificate into the giveaway. I've got about three $50 certificates from the co-op. I'm ironing out the details on getting one of these all powers power backups. I run my entire fish room on this thing when I have a power outage, and this is the smaller unit. This is the 500-watt unit, but I'm trying to work out getting one of these to give away. Expertmatic looks like we'll be able to give away one of those Expertmatic 35-watt internal filters, the real powerful ones, the clear plastic ones with the black inserts. And I think I've got it lined up so that Life with Pets is going to be throwing in a divider. Now on that one, there's two sort of caveats on the giveaway. You should be in the U.S., the continental United States, because just for shipping purposes, and with the Life with Pets, those work with Aquarium tanks. So if you have an Aquarium tank, anywhere from 10 to 55 gallons, and that would be the person who wants to win that divider. I've got two of them in use right now. I've got one, excuse me, I've got one in the Betta duplex, and one of them splitting this 55-gallon over here, where I've got the Autopharinx tetrastigma with one eye, Lazarus, and or Jack Sparrow. I think I decided to call him Jack Sparrow. And then I've got the silver dollars, and then I've got the two bettas in the 29. So those things work great. You can expand them sideways so they get a little bit wider, and they're really like tucked in there, and the top has clips, so it like holds it in place. It tries to float, so it pushes up against the top, and then the clips hold it snugly in place. And then you build up a little gravel around the bottom, and they just work great. So that's what we've got so far, and I'm waiting to hear back on 3 or 4 other vendors that you'll like a lot. I'm not going to mention their names because if they don't come through, then it'll be kind of weird. But 3 or 4 other vendors that are awesome. And so that'll be on the 17th, the big Christmas giveaway. So I hope you can join me for that. And not sure exactly how we'll do it. Maybe I'll have my daughter down here. And last time what she did is she just closed her eyes and picked a name on the chat. So maybe that might work. And I tried to put a bunch of names into a hat one time, and it took me almost an hour to write all the names and then tear them up into little strips. I don't think I'll be doing that. So at any rate, yeah, look for that on the 17th. On the 17th. And if you get those gift certificates, of course, you can use them for anything, for food, for meds, maybe get that kind of stuff that you normally don't buy, but you you should have, like I mentioned in that one video on the that suggested video, things to up your game. I think there's another one called the Christmas list video. Get a controller, maybe pick up some meds, things, an extra heater. Someone suggested an extra heater. I should have put that on the list. And in case yours blows out, always good to have an extra heater, maybe a small little tank. So many things that you could get. So all right. So let's take a quick look at who's in the house. And I think I mentioned Angelo's in the house. I think some of you were talking about sports earlier, and one of you mentioned the Giants. Now, you were not talking about the San Francisco Giants. You're talking about the New York Giants, right? Because I think the San Francisco Giants is on the blocked word list for the channel. So I'm an old Dodger fan. So Cat Sailor in the house, Angelo, and let's see here. You folks are carrying on the conversation there. We also have Elements of Life. What a great what a great name, Elements of Life, like that. Marcus McClung, how are you doing, my friend? And scrolling through, Sunder all the way from India. Hello, Sunder, good to see you. And I'm scrolling. GP, Sailing Aquatics. A big shout out to my wonderful moderators. Moderators are just the ones that really keep the chat family friendly. So, hey JD, good day to you too, my friend. And XV Big Bird VX. XV Big Bird VX. Almost sounds like a game. Like, are you a gamer? Is that like a gamer name? It's kind of a cool name there. Everyone says my all dojo loach tank is an odd pick. Hey, dojos are beautiful. I think they're really pretty. So, it takes a while, but eventually we get to a point where we might listen to, but we don't care what. I can't even say we don't care, but we don't get hurt by other people's opinions about our tanks. Our tanks are our tanks, and we keep what we keep. And, I'm just, who am I to judge? And who's anyone to judge? I mean, if your tank makes you happy, then, hey, man, more power to you. Davey Larson in the house, Country Strong and Free. That's one of my favorite YouTube names. Wish I'd thought of it. And all right. Ken AJDK. Good evening. All right, from Denmark. Wow. Good to see you, my friend. Glad you're here all the way from Denmark. Beautiful country. Central Alabama Cichlids. Wow. Is that a shop? It sounds like a shop. Or is that a club? Central Alabama Cichlids. It sounds so official. R. Baglio. Good morning, my friend. Paul Newman. Good to see you here. And Melissa Steves in the house. She's saying God morning to. I know you meant good morning. We're having some great weather here. I was able to take a bike ride yesterday. Can you believe that? In December? Davey Larson, Z-Zip, Jay Jr. All right, we got some. All right, I could go on and on, but let's just get on with it and start this live stream. I just love watching the conversation you folks have with each other. But let's go ahead and get the show on the road. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that sub button, hit the bell, and hit the thumbs up. We're this close to 50,000. I can smell it. So please sub if you haven't. Get your friends to sub. Get your families to sub. Who was it? Was it Cat Sailor? Someone said I'm going to drag people in from the street and get them to sub. That's the spirit. So we're close to 50,000. So please keep doing it. And big shout out to the channel sponsor, the Cichlids Shack in Tempe, Arizona. Be sure to get your fish orders in while the weather is still good. The Cichlids Shack, use Shack Attack 10 for all products, and he sells everything there, right? Pumps and controllers and food and meds, and so Shack Attack 10 for that, and Shack Attack 15 for fish orders over $100. Discounts don't apply to shipping. He just passes the cost directly to you. He makes no money on the shipping, I assure you. And a quick shout out to the members that support the channel on a monthly basis. Those are the Patreon members. And this is an ever-growing list of what we call founding Patreon members. Thank you so much for that monthly support. It is greatly appreciated. Other ways you can support the channel if you care to is to pick up some swag, different kinds of things that are offered at the Teespring store, including mugs and sweatshirts and all kinds of cool stuff. You can just go to Teespring, and you can also visit my Amazon store where I have a lot of fish keeping products. And an interesting thing about the Amazon program is that if you use that link to get to Amazon, anything you buy on Amazon, whether from my store or anywhere else, gives a credit to the channel. So you can support the channel that way. So there you go. We paid some bills. All right. And also super chats. Thank you to all my super chatters. Super chatting is a way to throw a little money at the channel, and it's available in the chat section. So there you go. So today's topic is ammonia, and ammonia is something that makes a lot of fish keepers cringe. And hello, Peas and Haps Forever, good to see you. Ammonia is, but without ammonia, the bottom line is your tank would be dead. It would be just completely dead. So the more I've looked into ammonia, the more I've come to appreciate its role in the entire process of fish keeping. And we never have a tank that is ammonia free. You have ammonia which is in the safe levels, which is when your test kit tells you there's no ammonia. It means that your ammonia is in the safe levels and is being converted rapidly enough to not have a negative impact on your fish. But you always have ammonia. There's always some ammonia in your aquarium, and of course it's being added, it's being secreted through the gills, right? It's just coming out of the fish, constantly. And of course, the bigger the fish, the more they eat, the more you get, the more waste product, and that ammonia is very vital because it is feeding the kind of beneficial bacteria that then produces nitrite, which is then feeding another kind of beneficial bacteria. And of course, that's all ultimately being converted into the marginally, if at all, harmful nitrate. So, which you remove with water changes, right? So Ammonia is very, very crucial. It is an important part of the aquarium, and it's one of the reasons I think that folks fail when they use things like bacteria in a bottle. They go ahead and they add the bacteria, or they bring over beneficial bacteria from an existing aquarium, and they put it into the new setup, and they let it sit for a very, very long time without adding any ammonia producing fish, and that bacteria starts to die off. There's two main reasons that ammonia in a bottle fails. The first reason is that it's expired. The bottle expired. So whenever you buy bacteria in a bottle, Dr. Tim's, Seachem, or Fritz, whoever makes it, check the bottle, make sure it hasn't expired. If it's expired, don't use it. Throw it out or take it back if you just bought it. It's not any good. Number two, the second reason, you add the beneficial bacteria to an aquarium that hasn't been treated, and then the chloramine in the aquarium kills the beneficial bacteria. So fill up that tank. What I do is I fill it up, this because I have other tanks available. I fill it up half with aquarium water from an existing established aquarium, mostly for pH purposes. Then I fill the rest of it up with water from the tap that's treated, right? So I have an aquarium that is treated water, and then I add the beneficial bacteria. By treated, what do I mean? I mean, of course, adding Prime or Fritz Complete, or whatever you're using to dechlorinate your water. Now, I can add a third reason for failure on beneficial bacteria being added to an aquarium, whether it's from an established tank or in a bottle, and that's that you're not feeding the beneficial bacteria its vital nutrient, which is ammonia. It needs the ammonia. Now, Fritz has a product where you can actually add ammonia to the aquarium. I'm trying to remember what that is. Is it turbo, or there's something? There's a Fritz ammonia product that you can buy. You can add right to the aquarium, and it'll feed the bacteria when you don't have the fish immediately to put in. But when you bring over beneficial bacteria from an established tank, or you use bacteria in a bottle, you've got to get some fish in there right away. Not 20 or 30. I tend to add maybe 2 or 3, and then another 2 or 3, and then another 2 or 3. And of course, I'm doing a few tests as I go along. And eventually you can tell. You can tell if the fish are in distress. You should be able to add fish to a new aquarium, and they're acting perfect immediately. But if those fish are clamping their fins and going into the corner, and they're not eating, and they're listing, right? They're tilting over a little bit, like their swim bladder is not working. You got a problem. You've got a problem. And so something was not right in the steps that you followed. Now, interesting relationship with ammonia and plants. Apparently, plants thrive and convert into nutrients, right, ammonia more effectively than they convert nitrate. So people say, well, I don't have a nitrate problem because I have a lot of plants. And when the truth is, what they don't have really is they don't have an ammonia problem, which of course catches it early on, right? They don't have, the ammonia is being consumed by the plants directly, and it is the best, like the best nutrient, right, it can get. And it can also use nitrate, but ammonia is sort of like the that's the super boost, and much more effective for it than nitrate. But you'll have less nitrates because the ammonia is being absorbed by the plants in the planted tank. And so you can see a tank sitting there, and it has no movement, no water movement, heavily planted, and there's some fish, little fish, some shrimp thriving in it. What do you have? You have plants that are absorbing ammonia, and some nitrate and producing oxygen. And because they're producing oxygen, you really don't even need that surface tension breakup, right? And what else do plants absorb? They're absorbing CO2. So they're absorbing CO2, ammonia, putting off oxygen. This is why planted tanks are amazing. They're just absolutely amazing. I'm just starting to get into them because for years and years I've had fish that were just plant wreckers. They're just plant destroyers. So I haven't been able to really have plants, and the plants I have are some man-made plants from a company that is no longer around called Elite Cichlids. They went out of business after it was a family-owned operation. When mom passed away, they shut the doors. Unfortunately, because they made a beautiful plant. They're florists that then started making aquatic plants, and you can see it in the plants that they did. But at any rate, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about this? About have you learned to appreciate and love ammonia the way I have? I certainly don't fear it. Now, if I do have a detectable level of ammonia, which I have never had in one of my tanks, except perhaps one that I just filled up before I even added anything to it, but if you have a detectable amount of ammonia, which means it's over the threshold of how it'll harm fish, you do need to act very quickly because it is absolutely deadly. And this is in no way an endorsement that you should be adding ammonia to your aquarium unless you're starting up an aquarium and following the exact steps laid out by Fritz on how to use ammonia, for example, or as you can find online on how to use a ammonia method to start an aquarium. But we really need it. It's key. It has to be in the tank. Otherwise, our beneficial bacteria dies. And if that dies, your fish die. It's just a cycle that needs to keep turning. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So let me hear what you have to say. And I'm going to get into the chat here. There it is. Now, by the way, while I was going on and on, if anybody hit me with a super chat, I missed it. Nope. Okay, good. All right. We'll make sure I didn't miss anybody. But let's see here. I am scrolling the chat. And for those of you who came a little late, be sure to join me on the 17th. We're doing a big giveaway. And I've got some great vendors lined up. Just to go back and show you the banner that I have for it. Let's see here. Here it is. I've got the Aquarium Co-op participating. I've got KG Tropicals jumped in big time, and All Powers for a power backup. We're negotiating the last loose ends. Expertmatic is possibly going to be involved for some internal filtration, and about half a dozen other vendors whose names I'm not going to mention until I get them finalized. But you're going to like it. You're going to like it. Some good stuff and products that I've reviewed before and that I use and like. So tune in on the 17th for a giveaway. So let's get back over to the chat. All right. So let's see here. Turbo Start. That's what it's called, Sean? Turbo Start by Fritz? Very, very good. That's the product. Hey, I got hit by a super chat. Sailing Aquatics. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Brown nosing for the... Brown nosing. What a horrible term. I love people with a sense of humor. All right, so let's see here. Autism radio. I was told by the manufacturer of Biohome And you talk about Richard Through over in the UK? Not to use Prime with their media. That's interesting. I've never really, I've heard that before. I've never really clarified why that is or why he made that statement. I don't know what he would, but what does he suggest for treating water? What is the recommendation then? I'd be curious to know. But it might be. I'm trying to think back on when I've heard that talk before, and I think he considers that it could inhibit the kind of bacteria that will give you the full cycle. What he promotes is that he can get an aquarium to get to a point where water changes don't need to be used for nitrate reduction, right? Only for remineralizing, but nitrates will stay at zero because you can get an anaerobic bacteria going deep in the media, and that anaerobic bacteria will convert nitrates into a form-working gas off of the aquarium. But you do need for certain kinds of fish, like African cichlids, you need a tremendous amount of biohome to make that happen. So, but I like Richard. I like his products. I like him as an individual. I think he's a straight shooter. People have wild opinions about that product. When I used it, I had good results with it. My most stable tanks had Biohome and Marine Pure. And then I just started going more and more in the direction of economical media. But I think it's good stuff. I have nothing bad to say about it. All right, let's see here. GP, yeah, they think Prime won't allow anaerobic bacteria. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm using Fritz Complete. I'm assuming Fritz Complete is the same kind of ingredients, and I use deep substrates so that after 6 months or so I can get some anaerobic bacteria going, right? But so hopefully I'm not inhibiting and shooting myself in the foot by using a water treatment. That's not necessarily good. All right, so let's see. If you have a question for me, hit me now. If you have a comment about ammonia, I'd like to hear it. And Autism Radio, I don't think I've seen you before, so welcome to the live stream. I appreciate you participating in the chat. And Joseph Chu. Hey, Joseph, how are you? Anyone notice if you use stability to start the tank, you will have no consistently use it, or you stop, the ammonia will spike. Well, that's interesting. Because it's supposed to be something that is going to be feeding the ammonia, not necessarily inhibiting the ammonia. But if you're feeding it, I guess it would be converting things to nitrite. But interesting. I haven't experienced that, and now it's been years since I've used the Seachem product. I've been more kind of a Fritz guy. I've been using the Fritz products, the bacteria in a bottle. Fritz 7, I think, was the last thing I used. Some Fritz 7. Now that I have some very established tanks, now what I use more than anything is media from the filters of the established tanks. So that's what I've been using more than anything. But sometimes as an extra safeguard, I'll throw a little bit of Fritz 7 in there. But I don't know. Has anyone noticed that, what Joseph is asking about, that if you stop using it, you get an ammonia spike? Because if that's the case, if that's happening, and that does happen, then you're going to lose your fish. Fish have very little tolerance for ammonia that is, above that level that can be consumed by the bacteria. If it gets above that level, the fish just go into distress and die. I mean, it's a very quick death. James Green, in the past, I put shrimp tails in a mesh bag for cycling. Degrading protein worked for ammonia for bacteria. However, it raises phosphate, which promotes algae. That's true. Now I use Fritz fuel. There you go, Fritz fuel. So there you go. That idea of throwing a shrimp in the tank, that's been around for a long time. Throwing a little shrimp, letting something decay. Even plants, even decaying plants will add some anything really that's dead and decaying will add ammonia. People have had they've had little jumps in their ammonia test, and they've wondered what the heck's going on. And then they, in a very heavily stocked tank, and then they notice behind a rock there's a dead fish, and its eyes are missing, its belly is gone. It's been dead, obviously, for a little while. Well, they've had an ammonia factory going, and that ammonia factory created a little bleep on the ammonia spectrum. So you got to watch for that. Saline, I use CChem 2. It just works. GP, are you talking about the starter? The CChem starting product? Is it called CChem Stability, I think? Or are you talking about the CChem water treatment, the prime? I use Fritz on my smaller tanks. I use Fritz Complete all the way up to 90 gallons. I'll put 2 capfuls in this tank here. But the larger tanks, the 210 and the 300, I use CChem Safe. CChem Safe. I've never had a problem. You use like a 1/4 teaspoon dissolved in water for 300 gallons. So I mean, a small container will last you forever. I mean, it's just amazing. Cichlid Kings, I think the safest bet when setting up a new tank is Fritz Complete or Prime, along with bacteria in a bottle for every day for 7 days. Now, when would you add fish to that? When do you add fish? See, I would add fish within 48 hours of starting. And let the fish start, because the fish will do 2 things. One is they'll provide the waste that's needed. Also, and I don't mean to sound cruel, but they'll tell you how you're doing. Are they showing distress? Are they looking healthy? Someone mentioned they don't like test strips. They don't like the co-op test strips. They don't like test strips. Test strips are one indicator. That's one indicator. For me, the best indicator is, how do your fish look? How do they look? How are they doing? How are they behaving? What's the color? What's the behavior? What's the appetite? And you'll know something is wrong with your aquarium by watching for that before you'll know from testing. Your fish will tell you. Now, years and years ago, I released a video called Your Fish Are Talking to You. Your fish are talking to you. And then I think the subtitle was, But Are You Listening? And I think it had a fish like up against a guy's ear or something. And that the observation of your fish is really number one. I mean, you got to look at them, right? And like right here, let me show you here. Like when I look at this tank here, I'm going to turn this, but before I do that, let me change scenes here. Hold on. You get a better look. I can do this without disconnecting some of the wiring. It's a little bit at an angle, and you have a light pole right in the middle of it. But when I look at that tank, I mean, I'm I'm looking for the clarity in their eyes. I'm looking for the shape of their fins. I'm looking for gasping. Are they gasping? Are they working their mouths a lot? Right? I mean, I do the same thing back here with this tank. Let me get this. Of course, I'm tilted now. Hold on. Do the same thing with this tank, right? I'm looking at color. I'm looking at how are they interacting with me? Clarity in the eyes, fins. Even a little aggression. If I see a little aggression, that's not a bad thing necessarily. You know, I like to see some attitude in the aquarium. If I didn't, I wouldn't keep cichlids, believe me. So that, for me, that's your first and most important test is an observation of your tanks. What do you think? Let's see that here. All right, Sean is mentioning something about the co-op strips. Now, I've been using the co-op strips. You saw that in the thumbnail for this particular video, and maybe you know something about them that I don't, but I tend to trust Corey. I tend to trust his testing of products before he offers them in the store. And if you've had a problem with those strips, or you've done a benchmark of those strips against something else and found them to be off or something, I'd like to know about it, because I certainly I use them from time to time just to see where I'm at. So I'd be curious to find out. So let's see here. Sean likes the API test kit. Yeah, I found I did a video a while back, Sean, on the API test kit, comparing it to 3 or 4 other testing methods, including Salifert. I think Fluval had one in there, a nitrate test kit. I had like and API strips, and I had like 4 or 5 testing methods, and I found that the API test kit was always much higher in nitrates. It was giving me a nitrate reading that was always way higher than everything else, and it was a little bit discouraging. And I don't know what your experience has been with that. Okay, somebody's asking about live plants. I have a question. Is true live plants is better than plastic fake? Well, live plant, you know, if you have an aquarium that you can have live plants in, live plants are way better. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, what are they doing? They're consuming CO2. They're consuming ammonia, right? They're helping with nitrates, and they're putting out oxygen. What's not to love? I mean, because I've been keeping what I mentioned earlier, right? Just plant wreckers, plant destroyers. I haven't been able to have live plants. So I'm just barely now starting to get into live plants. And, you know, if you look at the, I don't know if you can see it from here. Let me move this over here. That combination of tanks right there, you have, zoom in just a little bit. You have the 20 tall, which is full of wisteria and Sprite, and it has a whole bunch of like little platies in it, and they're having babies like crazy. And then the beta duplex over to the right, where my 2 betas are, that has a lot of floating Sprite, wisteria, and a little bit of Anubias. So I'm having okay success with plants. I would call it at this stage limited success. I'm definitely not like some of these folks you see on YouTube that have these beautiful, planted systems, right? And some of them out there are just unbelievable, just crazy beautiful. And they must have arrangements with some of these plant providers because it seems like every week they're putting like 100 plants into a tank. And that anyone that's gone out and bought plants, plants are expensive. So, but I'm having a good success with the floating Sprite, which I love, by the way it shoots out roots. The Anubias is successful. The Wisteria, not. It's okay. It's okay. So for me, plants are a work in progress. But for sure, if you have the kind of fish that can live, coexist with plants, throw plants in there for sure. They are amazing, absolutely amazing. Gus Frazier, Predator Haps. I like that name. I put pothos root stems in my 125 gallon. The stems and roots are protected from being eaten by my ACs. Works great, and the pothos is growing. Yeah, I've seen that. Now, some folks comment on how to make an impact on an aquarium. And you tell me what's been your experience if you've done tests on this. I've heard that you need a tremendous amount of plants before you'll notice a discernible, right, a noticeable change in the nitrates of the aquarium, extended out from, of course, the ammonia, right? The plants consuming the ammonia and lowering the nitrate. Is that been the case? At what point in the adding of plants do you notice that there is a leveling off without water changes, and in fact a drop in your nitrate readings? That would be interesting to me, because the word on the street, what I've heard, is that you need a very heavily planted tank before you'll say, okay, that tank is a stable ecosystem that requires one water change every 2 months, and it is completely self-contained. It's producing oxygen. It's consuming CO2, but you need a lot of real estate dedicated to plants. So I'd be curious to know about that for those of you out there who are the resident plant experts here on the live stream. Angelo, I have a planted tank and they're growing like crazy. I do a water change every 2 weeks and it doesn't even need it. Well, why are you doing the water change, Angelo, if you don't need it? Hey, you know why? Add those minerals, man. You got to do those water changes for those minerals and make that tank look nice and crisp. I talked about that in my nitrates video. I made sure people didn't walk away from it saying, oh, I don't have to do water changes, because that's not true. And James says, for quantitative testing, I use a high-range Hanna chlorometer. It looks like color meter, but is it chlorometer? For a quick qualitative check, I use the Aquarium Co-op test strip and may verify with an API test kit. Okay. You're covering all your angles, James. Hanna makes, for those of you not familiar, Hanna makes high-end laboratory quality types of testing equipment, and I've reached out to them from time to time about certain things. Hanna products are not cheap. They are expensive, but they are, in some ways, the gold standard of testing. All right, somebody is Ikawaka Dimota. Ikawata Demota, boy, I hope I'm not killing that name, but is asking, I have a question, is it true driftwood and crushed coral for pH levels? I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking. I do know that crushed coral will add minerals, right? These minerals, calcium, magnesium in particular, will help neutralize nitrates. Nitrates are basically nitric acid, and nitric acid can be buffered to some degree or neutralized by the minerals in the water. I have heard that you need to, from time to time, refresh your crushed coral because it can become exhausted. But I've never done that, and I haven't noticed a sudden spike in nitrates. But yes, it can help. It can help with stability, so you don't have a rapid spike or a change, and then also a rapid change in pH, right, in the acidity or alkalinity of the water. Regarding driftwood, I have heard that driftwood can lower pH, but I've heard that that's temporary, that after a while, when some of the tannins have finished sort of bleeding out of it, it tends to be a inert in the tank. And there are some of you on here, I think I saw half man, half cichlids in the chat. Perhaps you can comment on that, because I think you had, didn't you have, John, didn't you have some wood in an African cichlid tank? I thought I saw real wood in an African cichlid tank once. And I think you even had plants in an African cichlid tank, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, maybe you can comment on that. But I've been using artificial plants, and I haven't used real wood in an African cichlid tank out of concern of the pH going down. My pH here is marginal for African cichlids, 7.5-ish, right, to 7.8, somewhere in there, out of the tap. So, so the tank, my African cichlid tanks are loaded with aragonite and crushed coral. I have heard that dolomite and limestone are also two very good things to use in a rift lake in an African cichlid tank. So, country strong and free. My wood never lowered mine, I don't think. All right. Sean says it doesn't lower pH in some tanks. Okay, Gus is clarifying his comment regarding the pothos in the tank. When I said it works great, I meant it works great for growing out pothos. Not sure if it's taking care of nitrates. I still do weekly water changes, 50%. Okay, interesting. Now, I wonder if that pothos would grow even more if you skipped a water change. All right, so I'm checking here on the chat. If you have any more questions, go ahead and throw them at me. Sean is adding a few bags of aragonite to keep my pH stable at about 6, 8 to 7. Now, I've heard that folks will add, and I think I saw Corey at the co-op do this, they'll add crushed coral even to the aquariums that are lower pH, because minerals in the water help to stabilize and prevent a rapid shift in pH, a crash in pH. So it's always good. It's always good to have minerals in the water. Your fish are absorbing minerals right through the body, right? They're absorbing those minerals, and crushed coral is a great way to add calcium and magnesium to the water, which is vital. I have a little handful of that in all of my tanks, but I also add trace minerals to my African cichlid tanks, a Malawi, Lake Malawi trace minerals. You can pick them up from Seachem, and I believe Fritz also has them. So there's that. Now, Central Alabama Cichlids makes a very good point. When testing your tap water, always leave it sitting out overnight to let the CO2 equalize so that you know your true pH from your tap. My water is 8.2 from the tap, but equalizes down to 7.6. Now, why do you think that is? Why does it do that? Why would it come out different and then turn into something else? And are you running it out at the same temp that you would add it to the tank? Because you may have different substances in the hot water line that you don't have or have in the cold water line. So interesting comments on that pH. I've never done that before. I've never let it sit overnight and then tested it. That would be an interesting test. Kent AJDK. Plants also use minerals for their buildup. I use dried eggshells. Well, that's interesting. Dried eggshells. That will add calcium, won't it? Calcium, magnesium. I think when animals eat eggs, right? Don't they eat the whole egg? They'll just pop the whole egg in their mouth and start chewing. Let's see here. Michael Lodinero. Hello, Michael. Good to see you, my friend. I use aragonite, crushed coral, and limestone. And pH is in the low 8s. Now, what does it come out of the tap? Have you tested it out of the tap? I'm wondering if that is helping to raise your pH, and how much of a water change do you do, and how often? Those are all the moving parts we have going on, right? It's a real fluid situation. So if it's coming out of the tap at 7, 8, and you're running in the tank at 8, that would be interesting. That means that those products are in fact raising pH. And if you're only doing 10%, 20% water changes, that would be different than, let's say, if you're doing 70% water changes and adding that lower pH to the tank. And that's something I've heard people say. If you do a large water change and you have a big difference between the tank and the tap, you could actually shock your fish with a rapid shift in pH. And this is why some folks prefer to do smaller water changes more frequently as opposed to a larger change less frequently, because of the possibility of a pH shift, which can be deadly to your fish. All right, cruising the chat here. Michael says, yes, my pH out of the tap is 7, 8. Okay, you got some pretty high pH already. 8, of course, is a lot higher than 7, 8. I think is it each point? 7, 8, 7, 9, 8, 8, 1. Isn't each point 10 times more than the prior point? I think it's like a Richter scale, right? It's 10 times 10 times 10. So it's a lot more. So there's a big, between 7, 8 and 8 is a big difference. It's not just the small difference that it seems, but hey, Oink Master Supreme forever in the house. In your experience, who has had a better tank mate friendly disposition, Yellow Labs or Geophagus, specifically Tapajos? Haven't had either yet, but would like to someday soon. Yellow Labs are going to be very territorial, and I think if you provide a big enough footprint with caves, you should be okay. That being said, my Tapajos never had a problem with each other. They were always fine. These guys, which were sold to me as Surimanensis, but now it turns out I don't think they really are. Those two beautiful geos right there. They're just jerks. They're jerks with each other. So yeah, do a little research on the before you make your move. But if you have at least 5 feet across, and you build up some caves, they should be fine. And if you put enough of them in there, like you've seen John Hudson over at KG Tropicals, he's got that blacked out tank that's just pure Yellow Labs. Beautiful setup. There's just so many in there that, and they keep having babies, I think. There's just so many in there, I don't think that any one fish is getting hurt at all. So if you're going to have a lot of fish with a lot of caves, you'll be fine. The Tapajos, I think you'll be great. I suggest a group of 4 to 6. Get a nice little group of them, and they'll be happier. They'll school around sometimes. Gorgeous fish, and they get nice and chunky and big, and one of my favorite fish. And I plan to get some of those in the future. All right, let's see here. Well, Jerry has a different story. See, my Tapajos got along fine. Jerry says that his Tapajos had to be separated. Interesting. Evan Glassifer, my water parameters are going for my Mabuna tank. Grow too much algae. The water has a green tint. What can I add to eliminate and get the water crystal clear like my other tanks? Well, you know, all of you can jump in there. I think you've got a couple things going on. One, you probably have phosphates. Phosphates can be coming from your tap. They can be coming from your decor, the substrate that you're using. A lot of places that your phosphates can come from. If you can get a hold of a phosphate test it. There are products you can add that'll lower phosphates. You can buy phosphate pads that you can put into your filter. Limit the amount of time your lights are on. Be sure you're not getting any direct, and in some cases even indirect sunlight, because that will of course do it. Now, all that being said, green algae is kind of cool. Green algae does what plants do. They consume the ammonia, right? The nitrate. They add oxygen. They consume CO2. The fish will nibble on them. So if I had green algae growing, I would scrape it off the front viewing panel of the aquarium, but I'd let it go on the back, maybe on some of the decor. I wouldn't mind a little bit of the green algae. Brown algae, what they often call red algae, and certainly bearded algae. I hate it. I don't like the look of it, so I try and get rid of it. Even though in the back of the tank, I just tend to leave the back of the tank alone. And Alex Tarek, use a UV and add a pleco. Yep. Let me tell you, just get yourself I would, depending on the size of your tank, I tend to discourage or not recommend a plain green pleco because they just become ginormous, gigantic, and eventually if you don't have a big enough tank, you'll have to get rid of them. But bushy nose plecos, maybe a snowball, maybe a sailfin albino. Those plecos don't get too large, and they will work like crazy, and they'll help clean up that algae. And then when they're done, you'll have to start using algae wafers because they'll do such a good job. Now, I had a green pleco one time. People were telling me this wouldn't work, but I added a plain green pleco to a 60-gallon that I had in California, and in 48 hours, brown algae that was on the rocks and plants and the glass was gone. Absolutely gone. It was as if I had pulled out the decor, scrubbed it, and put it back in the tank. It was like unbelievable. So, Whip's World had green hair algae. I let it go crazy on the back panel, and then I got 7 bristlenose and hocus pocus alakazam. I thought you were giving me the name of a pleco. Is there a hocus pocus pleco that I've never heard of? Yep. Plecos will do the trick. I've got about 30 plecos I'm growing out, so I'm going to be sending them out on deployment. So 32 cichlids in the house. Good morning to you. Uh-oh. Looks like we got a troll attack there. Triple X 18. Let's report and remove. All right. Where are my moderators? All right, so hit me with your questions. And I will go ahead and pull up the chat and take a look. Once your channel starts to grow, as soon as you post a video, you start to see these 18 and over XXX comments that must be generated by bots. All right, let's see here. Hit me with any questions you might have. So be on the lookout. I'm going to be releasing a couple videos between now and the end of the year. I might just do a test on some test strips that I got from Sarah. Maybe compare them side by side with the co-op test strips and see how they compare in results. I like Sarah. I also like the co-op. We'll see what comes up from that. And I also, I'm probably going to, there's been a video that over the years continues to draw and get viewed. And I think it's called gasping. Why are my fish gasping for air? So I think I might do a follow-up video to that. And very often over the years, I pick up more experience on a topic and I'll re-release. I probably have videos that have the same title as prior videos. And there's a part of me that thinks, well, wait a minute, am I going over the same ground over and over again? But there's another part of me that says, okay, look, as time goes on, I learn more and I bring different experience to the same topic. So I'm probably going to release a topic on a video on oxygen, on signs, things to do, and all about oxygen. Its relationship to beneficial bacteria, its relationship to just general fish health, signs to look for, its impact on color, its impact on just everything. And so watch for that. It might be Why Are My Fish Gasping Part 2, maybe something like that. But so look for that. Whip's World. I have to move my 210 from one stand to another. How do I do it? And what are you doing next Saturday? Well, hopefully your stand is open in the back. Like, does it have a frame in the front and the sides and then open in the back? Are you going to try and do it with decor, substrate, and a little bit of water in it? Or are you going to empty it out? You shouldn't move it with any water because I've heard that can weaken the seams. So you should empty it out as best you can. I have moved tanks with some things in them, and but those were acrylic, and they're built differently than glass tanks. But I am busy this coming Saturday. And it's probably just going to be a matter of doing what I did when I got the 300-gallon. I had 7 friends over, and we had beer and pizza, and just make a pizza party out of it. Just like the old Amish, barn raising. Just have a bunch of friends over, and everybody. The best thing is to get those suction cups, right? Don't get the little ones. Get the big, heavy-duty ones that you dial down, and each person has 2 of them, and you have 2 on the front, 2 on the back, 1 on each side, and heave ho, man. And that's the best way to do it. Don't try and get a grip under it, because that's not that stable. Someone will slip, or someone will crush a finger. So ask me how I know. So anyway, that's my advice on that. Central Alabama Cichlids. Purigen is a great product. It has no negative impact on your cycle and remove other ionic substances like heavy metals from your water. It shouldn't hurt anything. I guess someone made a comment on Purigen. Alex, yeah, I like purging, by the way. I've seen results. I did a time-lapse video on it. I like it. After my tanks become established, just like with carbon, I don't keep them in the tank. I move it all out. So I don't have any type of chemical filtration. Somebody asked about the sumps. The sumps are working perfectly. I just did a major servicing on, and by major servicing, let me quantify that. I looked at the hoses on the 210 and they were a little bit cloudy. So if you're going to disconnect the hoses, you might as well service your pump. So I took out the Shisei 9.0, gave it a good cleaning, ran my pipe cleaners down the hose, got it crystal clear, clean the blade that returns the water into the tank, the hook, blade unit, and did a good siphoning of the sump. But it's working perfectly. It's working perfectly. I love the results. You can see here how it's looking. I'll turn this and I'll change scenes here so you can see. So that tank was just serviced, and you can see the clarity in it. I gave the gravel a gravel vac. And I'll tell you, if I have a regret, is that I didn't use sand. Because with sand, my wave maker would have been suspending detritus and allowing my canister and my sump to go ahead and take it up. And vacuuming would have been real easy. I could just vacuum over the surface. With this river rock that I use, these pebbles, I've ended up with substrate that actually traps detritus and holds on to it. So my powerful wave maker, 3,500 gallons an hour, isn't doing much for suspending the waste, because it gets trapped inside the pebble. So I have to do a vacuuming, a traditional vacuuming, and I pull up a lot of gunk, especially in areas that are blocked from the flow of the wave maker, like behind the plant, behind rocks, under decor. So I did a good vacuuming, serviced the sump, replaced about 20% of the water, and you can see how it looks. But I'm probably going to put out a video on fish room regrets. And one of them is that I didn't use a sand substrate. It's also making me think twice about moving the geos into the 210. I'd like to move those geos into the 210, but they need a sand substrate. Otherwise, they're not happy campers. Now, that being said, I do have sand under that river rock. There's the original gray-black. There's about 1.5 inches of gray-black aragonite under there. So maybe I can just open up a few areas near the back where the geos can play. So short answer, sump's great. If you're going to be doing a sump, I highly recommend doing a simple sump. Just do it yourself. You'll save yourself hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And it's actually kind of a fun project. So whether your tank is drilled or not drilled. So it looks like we're 10 minutes over. And if I missed any super chats, let me see if I missed any. No, I didn't. Okay. Now, again, before I end off, I just want to remind you that on the 17th, there will be a giveaway. And we're going to be giving away some good stuff from some good vendors. And we're calling it the Christmas giveaway. And I've got KG Tropicals participating. We got a big $100 certificate from them. We got three $50 certificates from the co-op in negotiations with Expertmatic, with All Powers, right? Power backups, right? These units are not cheap. And I think I'll be able to give one of these away. Probably the grand prize. I've run my entire fish room off that one unit. Put a couple power strips into it, and you're good to go. I've got about 5 or 6 other vendors. Life with Pets, I've got a divider I'll be giving away for anyone that has an aquarium tank, anywhere from 10 gallons up to 55. And I'll have the final list of vendors. I'll probably post it during the week at the community page on YouTube, so look for that. And I hope to see you on the 17th. That might be the last live stream for the year. So at any rate, thank you everybody for spending an hour with me on the weekend. I appreciate it. And enjoy your weekend. Have some fun and relax. And I will see you folks on the 17th. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for stopping by. You're the best. Thank you, moderators. You rock, my friends. And thank you to the channel sponsor, Cichlids Shack, and to my Patreon monthly supporters. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye for now.